Father, these next few moments as we gather around your holy word, we ask that you would enlighten, enliven, and illumine our hearts and spirits. Father, these next few moments, we would see Jesus. We have another one of these stories. It's a famous story. It's the story of the woman at the well. That's what we were reading. You know the story, right? Yeah. The story of the woman at the well. Everybody knows the story. We go over to Sunday school. We've heard it a lot of times, and it's the lectionary reading for today. So right now there are probably 10,000 preachers in northern New Jersey preaching about this. And there are a couple of ways I could go with it. I've certainly heard enough sermons on this. I've done enough myself. There are a couple of ways we can go with this. The first thing that occurs to me is that this can be a story of social inequality. Specifically, a story about the feminization of poverty. The woman at the well, there are a couple of clues as to her identity. Beyond the fact that she's a Samaritan, we know that she is coming to this particular well at a particular time of day. Anybody remember what time of day it was? It's the 6th hour. It's the 6th hour of the day. Now, what does that mean? Who talks like that? What time is it? Well, it's the 6th hour of the day. No one talks like that. What time is the 6th hour of the day? Yeah, because the Jewish folks, Middle Eastern folks in general, in fact, their day ends with the sundown. Their day ends with the setting of the sun and begins with the rising of the sun. So, generally speaking, 6 o'clock in the morning, give or take, is the first hour of the day. So by the 6th hour of the day, it is noon. That's the 6th hour of the day. So she is coming to draw water at the 6th hour of the day, and that is significant for two reasons. First of all, no one in their right mind living in that part of the world goes out at noon. It's hot. It is really, really, really hot. Women in those days who drew water did so in the morning or the evening when it was cool, not in the middle of the day. The other thing we know about this woman is that she is poor, because wealthy women did not go to the well to get their own water. And for some reason, she doesn't want to be seen by everybody else. We have another clue when Jesus speaks to her about her marital situation. She's happily married with 2.5 children, and no. She's what? 5 husbands. Ladies, can you imagine having 5 husbands? Gentlemen, can you imagine having 5 wives? No, don't answer that question. And now she's living with someone who's not her husband at all. She's an outcast. In those days, that would have been considered the height of impropriety. To be divorced even once would have been considered a very bad thing. To be divorced, or otherwise married and unmarried 5 times, would have been, and Joan's sitting there saying, well, what about Elizabeth Taylor, God rest her soul? Well, lots changed since then. So we could talk about this as a story of the feminization of poverty and how Jesus bridged that gap. Another way we could go with this is to talk about it as a story of prejudice, of racial hatred. And to be sure, the Samaritans hated the Jews, and the Jews hated the Samaritans. We can look at 2 Kings 17, Ezra 4, Nehemiah 4, to get an idea of how much the Jews hated the Samaritans and how much the Samaritans hated the Jews. The Samaritans were the descendants of the northern kingdom. The Jews were descendants of the southern kingdom. The entire book of 1st and 2nd Kings is about how these things got to be, how they became divided, the political intrigues that created this hatred. And once again, we can talk about how Jesus bridged that. There's a lot to be learned from either approach, a great deal to be learned from either approach, but I submit to you that if we take either approach alone, we do ourselves a disservice, and more importantly, we do the text a disservice, because what we are left with is an us and them mentality. Regardless of whether you relate to the woman at the well, or you feel sorry for the woman at the well, or you think the woman at the well is someone you'd rather not know, it's still us and them. Either we're thinking, well, I don't like the rich people, or you're thinking, I don't like the poor people. It is still us and them, and I submit to you that Jesus would have us look beyond us and them. For as we spoke about last week, God so loved the Presbyterians that he, God so loved the Roman Catholics that he, God so loved the Episcopalians that he, God so loved it all. God so loved the whole thing, the rich, the poor, the good, the bad and the ugly. Maybe especially the bad and the ugly. Maybe especially that, for as we heard in our epistle reading, while we were yet enemies of God, he died for us. So I bring before you a potentially different way of looking at this story. In fact, a potentially different way of looking at any of these stories. I want to suggest to you that the woman at the well is us. We are the woman at the well. Right now, Jamisi is saying to me, look, dude, I may be a lot of things, but a woman ain't one of them. I submit to you that we are the woman at the well, and the story of Jesus' encounter with the woman at the well is a story of everyone's faith journey. Well, what do you mean faith journey? We're all on a journey. We're all on a journey, whether we realize it or not. Some people really think of this as a journey from life to death. And well, maybe most people think about it that way. We're born, we live, we strive, and we move inexorably towards the grave. But even if you think about it beyond that, even if you think of it as something more, you must admit we are all traveling. We're all on a journey. Norman, I'll bet your life is not the same now as it was, say, in 1953. Probably not. Yeah. This gentleman over here went to high school with this guy. And we're still friends. And I can tell you right now that neither of our lives are the same as they were, back in 1986. Jesus meets this woman on a journey. She encounters God, and she does the very first thing that we do when we encounter God. How does she encounter God?
Give me more.
Well, we don't know if she gives him more or not. But I find it very, very telling that the first thing that happens is that God asks her for something. Jesus comes up to the woman, or sees the woman, and says, "Can I have a glass of water?" And she does what we often do when God asks something of us, when we first meet God. She says, "What's going on? Why is it you were talking to me? Why are you talking to me? What does this have to do with me?" Whether we think, well, maybe I don't believe there's a God. Or maybe I believe there's a God, but I'm not very spiritual. I'm not very religious. I don't really talk to God. Why is God talking to me? And that, I believe, is the first thing that happens. That's the first thing that happens when we confront God. Or when God confronts us and asks us for something. God asks us for a little bit of our time. God asks us for just a little bit of something. And we often meet that with, no, it can't be. She says, "Why are you talking to me? Why are you talking to me?" And then we move on, and he begins to reveal himself. He says, "Well, if you knew whom you were speaking to, if you knew who it was that was asking you for a glass of water, you would ask for water from me. And I would give you what? Diet Cola. Oh, living water. Yes, living water. I will give you living water. And again, we meet the divine. Again, she meets the divine with disbelief. What can you really do for us? Well, what does she say? She says, how can you give me any water? How can you give me any water? You don't even have a bucket. Well, actually, what she says is, you don't have anything to draw water with. But I kind of think of that, look, come on. I'm the one with the big water jar. I'm the one you're sitting with the big water. You're just sitting on the wall there. You don't have anything. How are you going to give me water? You don't even have a bucket. And this, too, is the way we meet God. Okay, God, you're all the way up in the sky. Maybe you're there, maybe you're not. And I can pray, and I can pray, and I can pray, and what have you done lately for me, God? What have you done for me? What can you do for me? Can you do anything? And again, we meet God with disbelief. And again, God continues to reveal himself to the woman at the well, continues to reveal himself to us. He shows us that there is more to life than the things we crave. What does Jesus say? He says, everyone who drinks from this well will what? They're going to want to come back and get some more water. They're going to come back and get some more water, and this is the way it is in our lives. I know that when Norman eats a cheeseburger, he doesn't sit there and say, wow, that was such a great cheeseburger. I'll never want another piece of cheeseburger again. That was the greatest cheeseburger of all. That is the nth degree of cheeseburgerishness. I will never want another one again. And I bet it's the same thing that happens with Jamisi and, what's your favorite food you once said? Oh, well, for you, I have a very low memory. I think it was fried chicken. Yeah, there you go. I have an obnoxiously low memory for certain things. I will bet that you have never had a piece of fried chicken that was so good. So incredibly good. You said, you know what, I'm done with fried chicken. No. You always want more, don't you? Maybe not that moment. Maybe you got a point. Because you say, I don't want to wind up looking like a pastor, and but at some point you're going to want more. And that is whether we have just a little bit, or whether we have in overabundance, whether we are a pauper or a multimillionaire, we always seem to want more. Am I right? How many people have you met who have really ever said, gee, I have enough? No, I don't need any more. I don't need any more money. No, don't give me any more money. I have enough. Can anybody like that? Jesus points out to this woman, whatever you have in life, you will always want more. You will always want more. And he says there's a possibility that somehow, some way, I can give you something that will be beyond your cravings. Something bigger, something better than your cravings.